David, welcome to the show. I can tell from our banter just before jumping on here, we're going to have a lot of fun. And audience, got to get ready. David's going to teach us how to look at, if you're looking video, achieving more requires becoming more. Mindset Mondays. This is going to be great for you. You're going to learn something you can apply that might totally transform your life. David, what's your background? What are you doing today? Let's dive in.
I am just capping off 30 years as a serial entrepreneur. So, which means that I have very little focus and I do stuff I love to do. Right?
Okay.
Isn't that what a serial entrepreneur is?
Yeah. Right. And you've got a medal in the background, so you must have had some success in different things going on.
Yeah. And that was from the 2004 Georgia State Games. I was actually competed in the master's class of rowing and we took a gold medal.
Awesome.
Yeah, but wait, just so you know, masters means 27 and over. So I was feeling bloody ancient in that boat. Yes.
Well, I got a buddy that's still, I played water polo. I got a buddy, I'm 64, who still plays. And he goes to the Masters water polo tournament. And so they divide it in 4-year increments for the guys.
Much safer.
And basically, if you have a team, you get in.
Yeah,
and so they play in the nationals in the US. And then every 2 years, there is the World Games Masters. And he's gone several times. And I have another buddy who goes all the time.
That's fantastic.
And plays in, Czechoslovakia or wherever these games are. And they were really excited a couple of years ago. They actually won the World Games. But, the flip side of that is that, these guys that are like 60 are playing. And a goalie, they had 2 goalies get heart attacks.
Oh, Jesus.
During a game.
It must have been a really good game.
Yeah. It was great. Now, they both live, so it was okay. But
I look at it this way. I'm 8 years from that. So if I'm that fit in 8 years doing whatever sport I'm still doing, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah. Oh, right? Rowing's a great sport.
Yeah. I'm a cyclist now because I can zone out. And I do distance cycling. And it's one thing that for the ADD brain, for any of your listeners that are ADD, cycling is phenomenal because you can take in all the detail of everything going on around you, and it occupies your brain so you can turn off the part that's busy all day.
Oh, wow.
It's fantastic for an overprogrammed entrepreneur. It's the best therapy on the planet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So that's the first piece of advice you got for our people. So what's next? I mean, come on.
So I went through hospitality, then technology. And then in 2009, I sold my tech firm to my partner because I had spent a great deal of the time that she and I were partners doing it wrong, learning all the ways to live the should life, but not doing very well at living the good life. I mean, wait, it looked great on social media. But, I turned the doorknob to my office and my stomach turned, which was the first clue that I was off kilter.
Okay.
Right. So your listeners who are those over-calibrated entrepreneurs, the ones who are like eating at their desk more than they're eating at home. They know the kids play a sport, but they don't really know where or when. And their spouse hates their job more than they do. That's what I was doing.
Okay.
So that's the whole idea of Mindset Mondays came out of all the lessons that I learned along the way that I needed to read when I launched into my career. So I had a coach that challenged me to write the book I needed to read. So I did. But when I left the technology is when I went into coaching. That's how all this emerged.
So it sounds like you're like me, that we're still trying to get that PhD from the School of Hard Knocks, but we keep submitting the thesis, but it keeps coming back.
Yeah, exactly. One more pass. Yeah. One more pass. Right? One more edit.
Okay. So you've got, and you wrote this book, Mindset Mondays, and isn't it like 52 different things? So you got like a whole year's worth.
It is. The funny part is it's pulled from 3 years I've been doing a weekly live broadcast every Monday morning. 10 to 15 minutes about mindset and leadership. It's a great way to kick off your week. And like I said, been doing this. Groundhog Day was 3 years. So what I did is at the end of the first year, I took those first 52 episodes and I scraped together all of what I believed and thought about leadership and mindset and how to make those practical shifts in your world. And the learning I gleaned from the community who's participated for that first year. And that's what I put into the book. But I wrapped it in sort of a learning defense mechanism. I can't tell you how many times I took our team out with my tech company, took the team out for a 3-day, and everybody was motivated and torqued and stoked for Monday morning. And then the phone started ringing and the email started coming in, and we forgot everything. We went right back to what it was like before. We never got into that pattern of implementing. So my co-author and I, we built this thing called the REWIRE Framework, which is a 6-step process that I put custom prompts for each of the 52 chapters. So each week you can take the learning and the mindset shift from that chapter and use these 6 rewire steps to actually take it out in your world and make it real. So it's not just cool shelfware that you can have forever on your bookshelf, but you'll actually read it and do something with it.
So what's the process that enables someone to not get the inspiration from the hype and then it fades when the emails come in and the phones ring and that type of thing, but actually you've got this process or system where they can develop some new habits to overcome the bad ones? And you've got a 6-step program instead of the 12-step program of AA.
Yeah, it's quicker.
So you've cut it in half.
Well, and it's funny, it's built off one of the concepts of AA that from the 12-step world, you're not responsible for your first thought, but you are responsible for your second. And so one of the things I work to get across in the book is give yourself permission to understand that some of those knee-jerk thoughts, they're not useful or productive, nor are you bound to them, and nor do you have to make those go away. You've got reflexive thoughts that come up because you've been walking this planet for 64 years, and you've been influenced by your experience, your learning, your acculturation, your company, and your culture. And so you'll have some knee-jerk reactions, but by bringing attention and intention to the world you want to live in, you can be selective about that second thought. Because one of the quotes from the introduction is, "We do not see the world as it is, we see the world as we are." And what's powerful about that is that means that when we change the lens through which we see the world, we change the way we experience it. So you change your lens, you change your life. That's why mindset's so important. That's why research has been done for so long on mindset.
So that sounds so important today when we are inundated, some people would say attacked or manipulated by media and politicians and elites and all these people that want us to kind of say, twist truth or change truth or throw out facts and whatever. And many people are getting angry and so, or isolating or both. And it sounds like what you're saying is not just a work benefit, but this actually can help us get a better perspective on how we're just interacting with others.
Absolutely.
So we can do it in a much healthier way.
Absolutely. And it starts by interacting with yourself in a much healthier way, changing the language that you use when you're talking to yourself. And entrepreneurs do this all the time. We talk to ourselves and we get answers. So when you change the language that you use for your internal dialogue as well as with other folks, it begins to change the nature of those relationships. And so you asked, what's the mechanism to make these changes real? It comes down to basic brain science. Small behaviors repeated with frequency over time. It's the only way to replace the behaviors that aren't serving you with new behaviors. That's what the REWIRE idea is all about.
Okay, so give me an example that a behavior that I change so I don't come out of a meeting or watching a video or whatever pumped up, and then I go back to my old habits right away.
So great. So I'll play out the REWIRE. One of the REWIRE is an acronym, and it's a way to reinforce any new way of thinking, being, or doing. And it's broken out. So the first step is reflect. And what's important is after you've done one of these brilliant offsites and everybody's got the new strategy or new ideas or new affirmations or new whatever they're bringing in, is really reflect on what that experience was and what came up for you in that experience and with that new mindset, with that new way of thinking, right? And then we create an experiment that allows you to take that and apply it.
Now, I hate to interrupt.
Step.
I hate to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I want to ask.
Yeah.
So here I've done this offsite, or I've met with somebody and
Some training,
whatever.
Yeah.
And so there's been these, this is what I've learned. Is it sometimes that I need to consider something I didn't share with the group or the instructor or my boss? Because
always.
Yeah. So always. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there's always something that doesn't surface. It's very rare that everybody on the team or everybody in the company gets everything out in the open and gets everything processed. That, if it were a 6-month offsite, maybe.
Well, but it also might be that, it triggered something in me that I realized there's something personal that I want to change that I don't want to share with the group.
Absolutely. And that's what's cool about this is when you get into that reflect stage and then the experiment step, the next one is write. And that's where you capture all of these things that surfaced, the things that didn't get shared and didn't get aired, and the things that you don't want to share or air, right? And what the cascade is for you. So writing all that down, and remember, it's retire, not rewire. I mean, it's rewire, not retire, because it's not type. You actually write. In fact, there's a journaling page for each chapter in this book so that people have less of an excuse to not write. You literally, your brain processes information differently when you write by hand than when you type.
Yeah, I had somebody years ago who did some spiritual mentoring with me, and he would have me write some passages in the Bible. And I don't, you probably know the science. I don't know the science, but handwriting was totally different than typing or just reading. It wasn't just that a memory thing. It was, I experienced the verbiage, the teaching at such a deeper level.
Because you're processing it. In order to take something, whether you hear it or see it or think it and then write it down, you process it in a different way. You literally encode and decode it differently in order to translate it to pen motion. And Brené Brown says it goes from head to heart to hand to paper. So, I mean, there's a different experience of it. And you have these kids in college and high school now that are coming in with laptops and basically typing so rapidly that they're transcribing and they don't remember a damn thing because they're not processing it. The learning is different when they actually write or listen later and write notes, which is how my kids do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. But that's why this is right, because I want people to experience the emotion of what's coming up, the beliefs that are coming up, and capture it. Now, it's also a stream of consciousness. Don't edit, just write. Because then you get to play in the investigate step. You play the fascinated anthropologist, and you look at what you've written and start seeing what else is surfacing from that, what other awareness you have, and you use that information to revise the experiment you did and run it again. Because in science, the deal is you repeat your results. Well, we tweak it, you revise it based on what you know now. And here's where learning becomes real. You then take that learning and map it to another area of your life. So the best example for folks to think about is the only difference between leadership and parenting is one audience starts off shorter. All the same skills and ways of being and leading apply back and forth. So whatever you're learning in that leadership environment, what happens if you apply it at home? Or whatever's happening in a personal relationship that you're going through REWIRE with, try it in a work relationship and see how that learning expands to another area. When you can take something you've learned and apply it elsewhere, that's when the learning really gets stuck.
So let me challenge you on this. So let's say I am willing to write things down. I'm willing to, whatever the environment is I'm learning from or talking with someone or contemplating or whatever, and I'm writing down. However, I don't really think I want to take the time, because even if I write it down, I don't have the time to look at those notes again. So I'm going to write it down. There might be some value in that, but I'm never going to look at it again. I'm going to end up with all this written stuff, and it's really not worth it. What do you say to that?
Well, a couple things. from the science side. For some folks, writing it down and never looking at the notes again, they've encoded it, they've stored it. It depends on how your brain works. And from a mindset or personal development perspective, you've just decided that's true. You just made that the case, spoke it as a truth, and you're operating with that as truth. And the likelihood of something that you state in such a binary way changing is very low. And one of the games we play with language is when I say I'm not very good at taking notes, well, then I'm going to go about collecting evidence to prove that I'm right about sucking at writing notes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When I say up until now, I haven't been very good at writing notes. This is one of those language changes. Up until now is an incredibly powerful bolt-on to any sentence that includes something you're not good at. Up until now, I've sucked at taking notes. What that does for your brain is it leaves the opening for change. It opens up possibility. But when you say I'm not good at taking notes, that is true and will remain true as long as you hold that belief. And for entrepreneurs, everything about our world, for leaders as well, everything about our world is shaped by our beliefs.
Yeah, it reminds me, I was teaching we adopted some kids. I have a 13-year-old son, and I have biological kids that are grown. And he was saying last night as I was teaching him how to use a drill.
Yeah.
Oh, I suck at this. I said, well, you've never done it before. So don't expect you're going to be an expert, but it's okay. You're doing fine. But I like that phrase of up until now.
Yeah.
And then I would assume, how do you handle it? The person who thinks that they have to become an expert at everything. And maybe you're going to advise them that up until now, you suck at this, but you don't have to be an expert. Is that what you do? What do you do with that type of person?
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of things. One is, I suck at this. Well, there was a time when you sucked at walking too, and then you could walk. And there was a time you sucked at talking too, but you can talk. So that's the natural learning arc is you start off sucking at something.
Yeah.
And over time you get better and you move towards mastery. And it's important that not everything has to be mastered. We live in sort of an achievement elite environment where we expect certain levels of performance, particularly from our leaders. And you know what? Gay Hendricks has a great piece that he talks about in The Big Leap. It's the idea of distinguishing between your zones, like the zone of incompetence, the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and the zone of genius. Very few of us have more than one, maybe two things that live in our zone of genius. Those are the things to master. Those are the things to become brilliant at. And the zone of excellence, that's the stuff, man, that's where I get accolades and rewards and acknowledgement, but it's not my zone of genius. So every minute I stay in my zone of excellence, I'm not in my zone of genius, and I'm cheating myself and my clients from that work. So the trick is to help people be super selective about where they're spending their time. No, I don't have to master everything. I need to be able to use a drill without jabbing my hand or getting wounded, but I don't have to be a master at that.
Yeah. And the things that I'm competent at or I suck at, I can delegate. And you can learn to do that personally as well as professionally.
Yes.
Right? I mean, when you think about it, you can, if you feel like mowing the lawn and doing your basic gardening things because it's exercise and you like being outside, and that's great. But if you don't, it probably based on your earnings, you might be able to outsource that to a gardener and,
or have more kids.
Net. Yeah. Have more kids, like the old farming model. So let me go back to the framework. It's very interesting where you're going, but can you give me some examples of someone who did this? Because so many people are struggling now where they're getting stuck in the competence area or the excellence area, and they're not going to the genius area because they don't have time.
Yeah, the don't have time is a hard one. There's a friend of mine wrote a book called Only Tens, and he says, you don't have a time management problem. You've got an honesty problem. Because we're spending our time on things that we shouldn't be doing, or serving clients that we shouldn't be serving, right? And when scarcity is driving you, there are people who will take any client they can get to keep afloat. But it takes more time and energy to serve a client that's a 7 or an 8 out of 10 than it does a 10 out of 10. And so part of it is it's trusting your ability to create those clients so that you're not spending all your time with those 7s and 8s and sucking the life out of you. Our technology company, we had a lot of clients that we used to call B and C clients, that they were the gear turners. But the problem was we kept getting caught in the gears. It was exhausting. And focusing our effort on those A clients made a huge difference for our fulfillment. We were successful either way, but one is success without fulfillment and one is success with fulfillment. And I'll take the latter any day.
And often those B and C clients aren't profitable. So but
cash flow is different than profit.
Yeah. So I want to go back
I'll answer your question.
Go ahead.
A story of somebody. Some of what you're talking about is relanguaging. Changing your language that you use to change your experience, right? Which is quintessentially a mindset shift. Tony, a client of mine, was okay. He's one of those folks who loves to have a very thick to-do list, right? He doesn't have a problem taking action. In fact, he has a problem. He takes too much action. He's constantly in do mode, right? Or he was. And the problem was there was so much that he had chosen to do. He started to see everything as a have to. Need to, have to, ought to, or should. Now, all of those are external points of influence, all of it.
Yeah.
And he had lost track of the things that he wanted to do, had no motivation to get the stuff done other than just an addiction to a check mark, because he wasn't using, there are only 3 versions of the language that really hold for a internal locus of control. It's get to, want to, or blessed to be able to. And if anything you hear yourself saying, oh, I got to do this, right? Swap out the language. Does it work when you say, I want to do this? Or I get to do this, or I'm blessed to be able to do this? If it doesn't, check whether it belongs on your list or not. Is it something that needs to be delegated, or is it something that needs to be deleted? That first check for you is, does it fit with I want to, I get to, or I'm blessed to be able to? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm driven by the impact of the work that I do. And so there are things that, because this is the impact I want to have, I got to do this. But here's the distinction. When I swap it out to I want to or I get to, it fits too, because it's something that I have to do, or because I'm driven and passionate about it. But if I try to say I want to mow the lawn, not going to happen. There's nothing about it that I want to do, right? And it only lives in the I have to bucket. And there's a different energy consumption when you spend all bloody day in that have to, ought to, and should space. Soul sucking.
Yeah. So I'm curious, it sounds like the book, people got to dive in. They got to try some of these things. And I have not read the book yet, to be candid, but I really like the concept of it, the focus. And I assume that you talk about this writing things down and then going back to them in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just after the introduction, I open up what the REWIRE Framework is, and it explains the writing piece there.
Okay.
And it makes it simple.
Yeah.
Because it actually is.
Yeah.
It's the simple things repeated with frequency.
Now, you've obviously done this with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a couple stories of people where it really transformed what they were able to achieve, or maybe if we're not talking quote unquote achievement, success, we're talking meaning. Yeah. All of a sudden they really loved what they were doing. Whereas before they were maybe enduring or having that have to thing.
I love what I do, and I love how I do it. And even I was off kilter trying to fit in all of the one-to-one client work, all the team coaching work, and all the group coaching work, and trying to write the book, and trying to navigate the publisher who was crazy, who I had to get rid of, and lead my team, and. Oh yeah, and an active personal life. I'm married for 29 years still, 3 kids that are active parts of our world. So I have a lot going on. And I got off kilter. So literally going through the process of creating this book, I went through every single chapter. I went through all the prompts. I did all the experiments. And I had many holy shit moments of, oh my God, I'm off base. And I'll tell you the one that really hurt. There's an idea of currencies that entrepreneurs are in danger of being completely off kilter in how they measure their success. Because so often we measure it based on the number of zeros we have in the bank. Well, October 29th, 1929, it didn't matter how many zeros you had on the 28th. On the 29th, you had zero.
Yeah.
Financial security is not the number of zeros. It's, do you know how to make it back if you lose it? That's more powerful for financial security than anything else. So money is not a currency by which one should measure their success. You'd no sooner walk into your financial planner and say, I want all my money into this stock, just one. They're going to tell you you're nuts. So why would we measure our success based on one metric, one currency? We don't. So what surfaced for me was I was getting wound up in, what kind of exposure could I get for the book? How many of the books could I sell? How much time can I throw into this? How will I be seen as a new author, right? I mean, I went through all of it, none of which really means a crap in terms of fulfillment. And as I was going through chapter 49, the whole piece is about the way to measure your success is to look at what your currencies are, right? And whether it's around parenting or freedom or time or family time, travel, whatever yours are, right? Clearly, faith and renewed parenting, you've got a 13-year-old now. There are a lot of things that are your currencies that may or may not be other people's. But having a balance of that portfolio of currencies is what success with fulfillment looks like. Money is just a fungible asset we use to fund all those currencies. It's not a measure of success. So balance your portfolio. And I had to do some rebalancing. I had to change the way I was spending my time. I had to change how I was expending my energy. I had to change how I was being at home. This was before COVID. Not everything was locked down in one small room. So
that's right.
That had a huge impact on me, bringing me back to center and letting me find an incredible amount of joy with what I was doing, no matter how heavy my schedule was. So I got my own wake-up call from my own work.
That's good. That's good. Now, tell me about a client.
So Matt came to work with me after successful company launched in the UK, manufacturing product for 2 different continents. He and his brother said, hey, we got a great opportunity in North America. Matt said, cool, I'll take my 2 kids, my wife, I'll go to North America, start the company. Fast forward 0 to 6 million. He's built the company up in 4 years. He's hired a professional management layer. And he finally says, oh, now I can breathe. And he says, honey, now I have time. And she said, here are divorce papers.
Ouch.
He spent too much time over-calibrating. And so the work that we did was looking at recalibrating what was important for him, letting him look at what are the unwritten rules that are keeping you overworking like this and letting you miss all the signs that your family was telling you that you're disconnected.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you rebuild that co-parenting relationship? Because once you have a child together, it doesn't matter if the marriage comes apart, you are related forever as co-parents. And so Matt now has an incredible co-parenting relationship with his ex-wife, and he just got married again. He and his brother have an incredible relationship running now a multinational company that is 28 million in the US alone. They've outstripped the UK original. So because now he's driving everything he's doing in the company based on his values and what he wants to create in his life instead of what he thinks the company should be doing.
Cool. And that all came from your wireframe.
That was a couple of years before the framework. That work is where this framework came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
The work that I do with my clients, this is self-coaching. This book is for you. If you don't have me sitting with you on a weekly basis coaching, that's what this book is for.
Let me put it this way.
Everybody.
So everybody's busy. Everybody who's listening is busy. Okay. Yeah. And you're busy. You had to cut back. So if I'm looking at, okay, if I look at Mindset Mondays, how much time do I have to put in before I notice something's different?
Great question. If you start with the first couple chapters, literally, if you play with the content that's in there, notice I didn't say work on it. It's amazing how much more energy we'll put into playing with tough ideas than working on tough ideas, right? Yeah. So play with the first couple chapters. Within a week, you will start to see the difference in how people around you are reacting. If you're stubborn, it may take 3 weeks. What we know about habits is, depending on whose research you look at, it takes between 3 and 4 weeks to shift behavior, but particularly to shift behavior enough for those around you to experience the difference.
Okay, so if I want to be conservative, I'm going to have to try this for 2 to 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So people around me see a difference. And how many days a week, how much time a day am I going to have to invest to give that a try?
That's great. I have several CEOs now that are book clubbing this book with their leadership team every Monday. They're doing 1 chapter a week. And the information I'm getting back from the book out in the wild is they're spending an hour together book clubbing it, so that you take out of it. There isn't a chapter that's over 1,000 words. So these are easily digestible and readily actionable. You should plan for about an hour to an hour and a half every week doing the reading and playing with the REWIRE framework for each chapter.
Does that include the group meeting, or is that separate of the group meeting?
Running it on your own, expect about an hour and a half to 2 hours every week. If you're doing it with your leadership team or with a group of friends, add an hour to talk through the chapter and share the challenges, the experiences, the successes. And that's it.
So that hour and a half to 2 hours that I'm going to spend on my own, is that 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, or 7 days a week? Or is that just, I'm going to allocate 2 hours on one day and just plow through it and okay, I'm done. Then it's more of a checkoff thing. That kind of concerns me.
Well, no, spend an hour going through the chapter.
Right.
And then the reflect and experiment is your first stop gate. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to go out and you're going to reflect on what's happened in the chapter, use the reflection prompt that's there, use the experiment that's there, and go do that in your world. And whether that's changing the way you're interacting in a relationship, in a meeting, with an activity, they're all different. And then sit down and do the writing and then put it away. That's an hour, right? And then go back to it for another half hour or so to go through the investigate, revise, and expand steps. And that'll take you, like I said, an hour to an hour and an hour and a half to 2 hours each week.
So if I go through for the hour, and then I'm going to come back for a half an hour for the extra work. Does it help, or am I doing overkill? That after let's say I spend the hour on a Sunday, so I'm prepping for my week, whatever. And then I'm going to plan to come back Friday afternoon to do my revisit type of thing. Does it help to do a little check-in, like we do huddles with our teams on a daily basis for like 10 minutes and just, is this still top of mind, or am I just is it way in the back?
Think about it from EOS perspective, where they do the L10 meetings, where you have your group meeting on the Monday and there's a stand-up meeting on a Thursday afternoon to make sure you're still on track for Friday. Yeah. Right? Because Friday afternoons, you're either trying to get everything else in or you're trying to get the hell out. Right? So this would be great if you're doing this with a group of people. Yeah, Sunday nights when you're planning your week, do the reading in the first 3 prompts. Thursday afternoon, sit down and do the rest of the prompts. And then you've got Friday to expand it, to take that last step out into your world. Now, for the folks who journal, it's great to see what comes up after they've done expand. For the folks that are impatient or don't journal or both, keep going. Just keep going. Look, if I can get any entrepreneur or senior leader to slow down enough to pay attention to themselves, bring attention and intention to their growth for an hour and a half to 2 hours a week, that's a win already.
Oh yeah.
They get the outside perspective of their own behavior. Marshall Goldsmith, the world's #1 executive coach, one of the rules he has when he's working with a CEO is 20 minutes twice a day of some sort of meditative practice. He goes, I don't care what discipline, I don't care what it looks like, 20 minutes a day of a meditative practice twice a day. And he said, a year after he's finished working with them, only 10% of them are still doing it. And yet, throughout the time they're working together, they say over and over again how much of a difference it makes in their focus, in their energy, in their enjoyment, in their fulfillment. And yet they still stop doing it when they don't have somebody hounding them. So the challenge we have with busy entrepreneurs and busy leaders is they make up the belief that they don't have enough time to fit everything in. And that's one of the first mindsets that I try to dispel as an undercurrent throughout the first half of the book, which is you have time for everything that's important. You just have to decide what's important and let go of the rest. You will always find time for what's important.
Fabulous. Great place to end. So if people want to learn more, where do they go to learn more about you? And of course, they can find the book on Amazon, right? Mindset Mondays?
Yep. Mindset Mondays with DTK is available on Amazon. And if you go to mindsetmondayswithdtk.com, you can download the REWIRE Framework and use it even before you get the book. You can use it with anything that you're working on learning, any new way of being, thinking, or doing. And so download it for free at mindsetmondayswithdtk.com.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, David, for being with us. This has been great. I'm going to go check it out and I'll test it out. And if I do, which I expect I will, I'll let you know how it goes.
Let me know how it goes. And listen, it was a joy being in the sandbox with you. Thanks for letting me play.
My pleasure.